All right. Welcome to the Cuddy Neckbone Zone, aka the Seniority Report. We're making a video today, and I'm here with guest Charlie Shaw, and Charlie has a podcast called Pure Elite, and he can tell you some. Once we get into our show at the end, I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit about it. And welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, Kev?
Nothing much, man. You know, we got to do it today. We're going to talk about some law enforcement stuff, folks.
Man, I thought we was going to talk about leadership.
We are. It's going to ease into that.
All right, I'll do it. But you know what? I like talking about the profession that we both retired from.
Yeah.
And how we can improve upon the profession, whether it's leadership, looking at different topics, such as what we're going to do today. I'm glad that you brought this topic up. It's your show. I'm going to let you introduce it.
Well, we're talking about tasers in law enforcement because this actually has something to do with management as far as from ground zero all the way up to upper management. Everybody's got a different viewpoint on the use of electronic weapons in law enforcement. So I'm going to start with I just think it's a toy that's been abused and doesn't do anything good for the profession in the long run.
In what respect?
As far as the origins of it, for instance. I mean, as you know, like every cutting edge thing that's ever happened has come out of LA.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Would you allow me to talk about the history of how the taser came about? Because you brought up LA.
Right.
Back in the 80s, the taser was introduced to the streets with the LA Police Department. They began to deploy tasers in 1980 as a less than lethal option for subduing suspects, because a lot of times they were using batons. What is that thing called? The Billy Jack?
Or the blackjack.
Blackjack.
Like my uncle has still.
Those are they were using those types of things, and then shoot first.
Right.
Drawing their weapons and not employing what we call use of force matrix.
No such thing.
No such thing. So the introduction marked the beginning of the taser's use in civilian law enforcement, following his initial deployment in 1970 by Jack Cover. He was a NASA researcher. The adoption of the taser by police departments aimed to reduce the use of firearms and decrease injuries during arrests and confrontations. Over the years, the taser's technology has evolved and its use has become more widespread among law enforcement agencies throughout the country. Now, when I was at Orange County back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was my first introduction to the taser. I saw it when I was in the military, but I didn't get to use it when I was working in law enforcement then.
Mm-hmm.
My first introduction was the taser, and what's his name? Worked out there in Sector 4 with me. I'll let you know what his name is, but I was trained with him. He actually ran for sheriff at one time and lost to Jerry Dennis. But he was one that I was introduced to a taser with.
Spike,
there you go. Yeah. So, at that time, we were all excited about the taser because we were having a lot of shootings at that time. And there was a lot of people laying hands on the subjects that probably shouldn't have. But I thought at that time that it was a good use of force equipment that we could use. What was your introduction to it?
Okay, and I'm going to go with, I was around doing that segment, and this kind of isn't to pick on where we worked at. What I'm ready to say, it was nationwide. It just wasn't where we worked. But as officers tend to do when they get a new toy, they abuse it. Which
I can't argue with you.
No, because there were competitions. Hey, how many did you get today? How many did you get today? Because it was, remember when it came in, it was a 3 on the use of force matrix.
Right.
That's Charlie, what's your name? Zap in the chest.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So let's talk about what happens after that though, because once you get hit with a taser, then what's the next thing that happens?
You have to do paperwork.
Okay, no, I'm talking about just the actual incident before the paperwork. You
Oh,
got,
out on the scene?
I got two darts in me. Then what happens then?
Well, then you deploy medical, well, the ambulance, and they were the ones at the time taking them out. Here it is. We had take them, pull them out of the subject.
Right. And then what happens?
Get them medical clear so that you can take them to the jail.
Okay, and my argument was, and I saw it then, and it's worse now, that you're putting your hands on more people than ever before by using it. It's not taking anything away because, as you know, like when somebody hits with a taser and there's a bunch of cops around,
Right.
they wait for the cycle in, and that's exactly what you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to cuff under power.
Are you talking about the cycle of the tasers?
I'm talking, yeah,
when
because
it's deployed.
yes,
Well, if you don't wait until the cycle ends, you're going to be subject to the same thing that the subject is being electrocuted.
That's not the way it works, though. See, this is where we agree to disagree. No, it's seriously not the way it works, because the thing is, you're just supposed to navigate around there because, as you know, that whole neuromuscular thing that happens in that 5 seconds, it locks you up.
And then
But
go in.
But while you're locked up, that's when you try to gain control. But deputies watch, and when that 5 seconds is up, you know what happens? Then they go.
Then they go in.
But the person is fine after that. After that 5 seconds,
yeah, he's back to normal.
Yeah,
he or she is back to normal.
Yeah, we have been. It has been ingrained in us because we watched too many videos about people flopping around like fish, and TV shows where you go zap and they fall down, that we think that's the way it is in real life. And that is poor training on the part of law enforcement.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because before any training, what is implemented? I'll just finish the answer the question, and that is policy and guidelines. Because I like to talk about how to improve our
Absolutely
function, improve upon what we're doing. I think that if those things are happening, I'm not implying that's happening across the country or any one specific agency, but there should be a clear use of policy in those agencies. If there isn't, then one needs to be implemented or improved upon, because I know there has. If you're using use of force, there's a policy in there,
right?
And just like with anything else, you have to go back and review that policy, rewrite it. And I would even say this, because I want to have transparency with the public.
Right.
I think that you should bring in an independent review board, such as retired officers or professionals in the community to help you write these policies.
Okay, you hit two hot buttons with me, and I can't stand law enforcement agencies using transparency, because you're not transparent with everything, because that's not the way it's supposed to work. Some things you don't need to know until certain things are over with.
Well,
and
in what respect?
Well, I'm going to go with the other point of that. It's like when you're making policies and whatnot, like the example I gave, and once again, it's not. This was all over the country, because law enforcement agencies are not the same in a lot of ways, but they are in other respects. So remember, we wrote all the policies, and it was a 3, and then people, by today's standards,
the metric board
but it was abused, and then it was abused so bad that DOJ had to get involved. If you can remember back that far, which is why we had the use of force forms and the scroll of what to do and what not to do.
Well, my argument is always going to be this. It's always going to be this. When you create policy on, let's say, Taser, since we're talking about that, whenever you create policy, everything has to be approved upon. Nothing comes out perfect.
Right.
So DOJ, it's okay for an outside agency to come in and say, hey, look, this is the way we're doing it across the country. We would like for our local, state and locals to be uniform also.
It was desperately needed.
So you agree with me then?
Yes, but look at why. The point is like an entity like that should not have to step in, because it never should have been abused in the first place.
Well, we come from a big agency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Smaller agencies are not equipped and a lot of times they don't have the experience that is in their department that a larger agency may have. They may have some way that we do it like this because that's just the way we do it. They adopt that attitude.
Right. And
That kind of culture needs to change. So
it's hard. That's
yeah, it
a
is
lot of
hard.
police work right there.
Well, not really, not really. If you allow other agencies to give you advice on, hey, well, not advice, recommendation. See if these agencies accept the recommendation and then implement it into the system. I don't see where it's hard. I find it more stubborn. This is the way we do it in our town, and that's just the way it is. When law enforcement should be uniform and it should cater to that culture, or well, that the specific areas of the country. I mean, there's different. People are different all over.
All over, and law enforcement will be different all over because of that.
Right. But if you have a standards, which I was talking to somebody today, hey, look, if there's no standard, create one.
Right.
And a lot of times people don't want to create better standards for their employees, their agency, their community. They're just doing it the way they want to do it because this is the way we always done it. Well, just because it was the way you always done it isn't always going to be correct.
Yep. Police hate change.
Yes.
And a lot of times,
for the most part, yes. But once it's okay, I agree with you. A lot of police hate change, or a lot of people dislike. A lot of police dislike change.
I was a prime candidate that I couldn't stand change.
But once it's introduced to you, and I'm going to use the word that you don't like, transparent of why. I got you. It's transparent to why we're doing this, and it has to come from the top and filter down. If the top is transparent and why they're making changes to policies and guidelines, you can accept that better than you can. This is just the way we're doing it.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of you always get that meeting, and this is happening, and this is why. But I think the whole going back to the origins of tasers, like we touched on like LAPD and all that before. The false narrative with the taser that I have a problem with is that it relieves you of going more hands-on with somebody, because it's just the opposite effect. Because
go ahead.
Let me we'll go back to 1992, 93.
Okay.
Rodney King.
No tasers was involved in. Well, there were nightsticks.
No, there was a taser involved, but guess what? We don't ever hear about that.
See?
Hey, I did. Well, I'll give you a little background on me in a second, but during that whole incident, I was a 23-year-old kid watching that on TV like everybody else in the world, and I don't know if you remember how many times that they billy clubbed him.
Quite a few.
Yeah, but what I learned later is that, well, tasers were crude back then. As a matter of fact, they looked like flashlights that had like the two prongs that come out. Yeah, he was hit with those. He wasn't getting up. So that
he was just getting lit up.
Yeah, that premise from the start of less hands-on dies with just that argument alone. Right. Just with that incident, because you know what? Was he going to get up and run away?
No, there was no way.
Sakes. And guess what? They all got exonerated.
Well, I can't argue with you on facts of what happened.
It's just,
and I can't. My opinion of them getting exonerated when there's audio, video, well, actually just video at the time.
Yeah, it was just a guy on a porch that coincidentally.
Video and the culture of that agency at the time.
Which is the model for a lot of the United States. Yes. SWAT, tasers, everything comes out of LA is cutting edge SWAT vehicles.
Because I did open up with everything.
Yes.
It was invented out of there.
Exactly. And I'm not.
But okay, and for argument's sake, they weren't the model. They were the opposite of the model.
But
those were officers that, and I use that word loosely because I try to be respectful. Mm-hmm. Those were officers that was operating on their own agenda.
Yeah, it was a sign of the times. That's what.
Right.
That's what.
That's
and NWA and everything else was about F the police, et cetera, so on. Yeah. But I only give that example because I learned that. I took a electronics class, so I got certified in a bunch of electronic stuff.
Right.
And certain things, what I learned from that class, now everybody picks up different things when they go to class. Like I went with a bunch of corrections officers from like Sumter County or something,
Right.
and we got certified in inmate extraction shields with the, dude, there's reasons like in corrections in the courthouse and courtrooms, there's room for electronic restraint devices. Now, when we get to the side holster or actually being on an individual,
Right.
I submit to you that tactically,
It's not a good weapon to have.
no,
That's
it's
why you don't see those items inside prison
right,
or in the local jail. It's
right.
hands on. And
But why on the streets?
well, you're operating under a different environment. I mean, you don't know what the subject. You know what your prisoner should not have on him because he was checked before he went inside your facility.
Right.
But when you're operating on the streets, you don't know what the person that you come in contact with on the streets. Hey, look, you may think that this person is friendly and they're not. You don't know what they may have.
Right. So why would you type your hands with a object that's really not going to help you?
Once again, I'm going to have to the tape. Okay, since we're talking about use of force and how to go up and down the scale, which is what you meant about 3: verbal,
Okay.
physical.
I'll say somebody's at a 4.
A 4, weapons.
Yeah, say somebody's swinging a
Well,
club at you or whatever.
well, a lot of time. Well, it all.
And I guess what
it's the judgment of the officer. We're not going to take that away from the officer.
Right.
We're going to give the officer the opportunity. An officer can go straight to his firearm with a club in his hand.
But you know what happened, and I guess this is my biggest argument and pet peeve.
Would you agree with that?
I think that
the size of an officer,
all those factors,
are there.
I've seen things where.
So why wouldn't you hold on? I don't want to miss this point because you have. I was going to say female officers, but you have male officers that are just as small, and he's going up against somebody larger than him. He can't, he or she can't possibly take on somebody that has a mammoth size over him physically. What would you suggest? I'm not going to ask you what would you suggest.
Oh, you can ask me because I'll tell you. That's all happened before.
So let him try to deploy that device. If that don't work, and if he feels like his life is in danger, then by all means he has to protect himself. So I say that once again, the taser is a tool in the toolbox, and if I would rather see them try to utilize that tool before firing on someone.
I think it's an overrated tool to train a new generation, because one thing I noticed before I left is a lot of the older people, they wouldn't pull that thing out, not even to throw it at somebody. Because
I know and knew guys that wouldn't even carry their taser.
Yeah, and I will get one of the worst things that happen with the existence of a taser. A lot of things that you can see, and we can pull up whatever you want on video. A lot of things that could have been resolved with spray. People don't spray anymore. Spraying would alleviate a lot of everything you just talked about. Size factors. When you look at going to tasers, your size and all the things that we were taught growing up, like, goodness well, if you were faster than somebody, if somebody was 85 years old, you're not going to handle them the same way as somebody was 25. Those are all factors that the newer generation or the newer training, they don't harp on as much. And the taser should be one of those after the spray kind of thing, because you know what? All the things that I've had in my career, yeah, because you spray and you move, and then you wait. And you can observe, and if something breaks off, then you have both your hands free, and it's easier to throw down that spray than to worry about the taser and where the darts are and if they struck and all the things that we're not mentioning about the taser, because it is a pain in the ass thing besides all the aftermath of it. And it's just, I'm not saying that, I agree with you, it's a tool on the belt, but it's an extremely overrated tool.
Right.
The only time it's not, as far as electronic devices, is, like I said, inmate extraction shields, having to go in and have an electric shield. Yeah. And what I used to go to court and testify when they had to wear the electronic restraints for trial.
Have you seen the belly taser? Well, it's a
Uh,
form of taser
yeah,
where
yeah,
you got them in the
yeah,
chin.
all that.
Yeah,
Been hit with all that, and
we used to
you know,
use it. I think we stopped. I think the Marshal Service, and I'm not quoting them, but I think the last time I used it was early on, like in 06, 07, and we got away from
yeah. But restraint wise, it's more user friendly than to be out on the street and worrying about if did both darts hit or what the effect is. Because when I was in that class,
that. Hmm.
like I said, I was with some Sumter County boys, and they, for shits and giggles, they would hit each other with cattle prods up there. So you know what? I watched
Well,
one guy.
that's a different world up there in Sumter
Hey, they
now.
put it on me. I flopped around like a fish, and they hit this one guy. He walked right through it. He was just nothing but leather and cigarettes.
Well, from a management point of view, how do you think that they can improve? Because it's not going away.
No,
Not it's not going away. Yeah, I think that there's 3 points that should be addressed. People get trained um, on their less than lethal devices biannual,
right,
um, usually in April and then October. I think that they need to enhance the training first when they're doing the certification and recertification. I think that there should be more discussion on why why are you using it, and have these conversations like we're doing.
right.
And also, now that you really have to justify, even if you
Mm.
didn't use it and you use another less than lethal, I think that conversation should come up also,
Well, and that's the thing that
or find out why aren't
it,
people carrying
it turned into when I was telling you like the DOJ got involved with that basically people misusing it and the use of force complaints that bellowed in pretty much. It's kind of like I don't know. It's just that a lot of it turned into an investigation. That's the best way to put it. That use of force form for a taser looked like an investigation, and to determine whether or not you did anything wrong. And it was the whole form. You can't wait. It was the whole
they were
form.
collecting data.
Yeah, okay, that's an investigation. Yeah,
Well,
that's
any
hey,
document that you use, you're
perfect
collecting data.
perfect example of what we're talking about. That's the upper management definition of investigation. Boom.
Don't boom too fast,
Come on,
brother.
that's a cop's plane right there. You're
Huh?
gathering information.
Well, you got to collect data. Well, I mean,
But why?
even when you deploy the, well, why?
How much data you need? Everything is like there's the confetti, there's the timestamp, and this and that. It's like when you see all the questions in that form that I know you remember, it's an investigation.
Well, once again, if you filling out that form, you're collecting the very data that you agreed to just a few minutes ago about when we do certifications and recertifications. Find out why are people using it. I mean, it's both times you're collecting data. Is it because you think that it's just too much oversight?
Oh, definitely, because it's not anything that the DOJ is wanting. It's what
It's local.
what your agency wants. Your agency is investigating you based on you using something that they issued you.
Your listeners are going to think that I'm not officer friendly. I'm
No,
more.
this has got nothing. This has got nothing to do with officer friendly or not. This is
I just think that if it's not written down, it never happened. I've always
oh,
felt that way. So, and if something happened, I've always been under the thought process of you need to document,
yeah, that
and
form
that
is
goes with the officer, and management should be also trying to make sure things are documented, because you know as well as I do, it may not be a big deal today,
yeah.
But that subject that you apprehended
but
is
but
going to make an issue of it later.
but let's not forget, and this is one of my, we'll do another show on this, of course. This is management up here, management down here. It's always documented. There's an initial report, there's a use of force report, there's a charging affidavit. It's documented out the ass. This little form that you have over here, where you're like going, okay, what
Supplemental
this that?
reports. You heard of those?
Yeah,
Okay, then that's a supplemental
that's
report.
that's a supplemental report for somebody who needs to do it. But this is, when you look at a use of force form, and the last ones I remember, it was definitely look like a PSD form. And you can clean it up however you want. Yeah, it's called you're going to your internal affairs, because we don't like everything that we're seeing on this paper right here, because they're questions that have nothing to do with the incident.
You and I would have been bumping heads every day.
Totally.
But we would have still went out to
Totally.
lunch,
Hell yeah. It's like, are you sure about this? But yeah, but those are things that are worth talking about, right? Because it is, I thought it was overkill. I think that, and the reason I say that is because I've used my spray to spray somebody with a knife. I don't know if it's old thinking or not, but it was more effective to spray and move off center and let the guy drop the knife and fall to the ground and ask me for water.
Well, somebody got the damn knife, bro. I ain't spraying. No.
Oh, and but once again, it was circumstantial. Mental health issues, and he was like 65 years old,
right,
and
okay,
you know,
give that to me.
But exactly, and because everything's different all the time.
Yeah, but and that's the luxury of our job. Well, not luxury, but that's part of our job, is that every day is different.
Hey, we did. I guess where I was going with that story is when I because I ended up Baker acting a guy, but when I did my use of force form,
right,
there's nobody in upper management that asked me about it. They asked me to use your taser, and I said no. I never heard anything from it. I did it myself. The space on the form for spray, a narrative about 3 sentences long. Never heard from it again. Why?
Spray was so common. You can recover well from the spray. Maybe that's the reason why.
Yeah. So what's that say about the taser? So why are you way more interested in what happens with the taser than the spray when the results were positive in both cases? Why the investigation? Why don't you ask me about my spray and about the date and where I got it, and
was it within was it out of service?
Yeah. It's just that cops follow hot buttons. The taser was a hot button, and it was, as usual, overkill. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying don't ever use the taser. I would, even if I wanted to back in the day, I could never say that, because you have to think about your safety when you use a taser. There have been people that have seriously gotten hurt because they bought into that taser falls down and then not pay attention and get hurt.
Right.
Because it's not,
So what's your feel on the public perception of it?
I think the public.
Do we owe the community explanation on all this? Should agencies, once again, I know you don't like the word transparency, give education campaigns on why officers are using certain devices to apprehend subjects in the community?
Yeah, see, I don't really subscribe to that, because I think that if you're talking in-house, a lot of these incidents that I'm referring to or that I have in my mind right now that I haven't told you, they could have been resolved with spray. It was just the taser, to me, when that came along, what it did was the trainers basically inadvertently said, we don't really need you to talk to people, and you don't have to touch these people, kind of thing,
I'm going to agree with you on that, because I remember those conversations.
Yeah, and that
took away from verbal judo.
Right. Thank you. And that's it was just a way to remove youngsters from. If you had the conversation skills, maybe you wouldn't need the taser. You've never had to tase anybody, have you?
Only had to spray.
Yeah.
I don't recall any. I don't recall any time I had it.
You ever
I carried a taser for. Well.
Yeah. Did you ever recall a time where you thought about using your taser?
Yes.
Because I really, I
But
guess
but the person actually realized that that wasn't in his best interest was to resist.
right. And a lot of people, when you go to public perception, a lot of people also, uh, one of the very few cases I can say, I was in a pursuit one time over something stupid, but I was still chasing after somebody. And the guy was running down an alley and he reached in his bag. He had a bag, he reached in his bag, and I stopped and I drew down on him because I don't know he's pulling out of the bag.
That wasn't a taser situation.
No, he threw it. He threw it on the roof, and later on we caught him. Right. And afterwards you talk about shit. Right. It's like, oh man, this and that. And then he goes, I thought you were going to tase me. I go, I don't have a taser, bro. And he goes, oh, I'm like, yeah, you're doing some serious shit, man. I don't know what you're reaching for. That's not a taser moment. And his expression changed, and he understood stuff. And I was like, it's just what it is. Like you going to the taser. If you got time to talk to somebody, you got time to spray somebody.
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
We have this right.
But just like with the spray, sometimes a taser doesn't work on people, and vice versa.
Right.
And you have to get back to the basics, and that is,
or sometimes
if that's afforded to you.
I'm going to go with sometimes the part that we take off the table. Sometimes you can punch somebody in the face. It is a thing. It is on the matrix. You can defend yourself if it comes to that. You can push somebody.
Physical contact for the ones that are listening.
Yeah, direct them to the ground. However you want to spin it. You can punch somebody in the face and knock them cold if it warrants it. But you have to be able to justify what you do.
And that is correct.
Yeah, and it's like people
Everything has to be justified.
I can't believe the cop punched somebody. It's like that's that false narrative that they feed to the public. Yeah, a cop can punch somebody, and based on the circumstances, sometimes a cop can punch somebody first. Yes, it all depends on the circumstances.
It has to be articulated.
Which is
every action has to be articulated.
Which is what officers in general can't do anymore. They can't justify why they did it.
I'm not going to say they can't. I'm not going to say they can't. It may not be received.
More often than not.
Right.
Well, let's say everything that we see is kind of like
what's being seen is being seen more often than what it used to be seen.
Right. And
because everybody has a camera these days.
Yeah, but it turns into your actions need to be more than I was scared.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and that's not what you're seeing these days. It's like there are like 3 incidents that come to mind that will be in the next show because we're going to wrap up here in a minute. But it was like, why'd you do this? He had a gun. That's not a crime.
That's not a crime.
Especially in this.
Especially in Florida.
Yeah, especially right now in this state at this time. Mm-hmm. You can have a gun. Have you ever knocked on a door and somebody answered that had a gun?
Well, we're going to talk about that in the next segment.
We will. And folks, thanks for tuning in. And once again, this isn't legal mumbo jumbo, and we're not bashing